Have you ever thought about who you'd like to be with you during a zombie apocalypse? I'm calling dibs on our next guest because he's a National Geographic Explorer, wilderness survival instructor, certified scientific diver, and named one of the world's 50 most adventurous men by Men's Journal. Now, Chris Begley is helping the rest of us to survive and thrive in unexpected situations with his new publication, The Emergency Playbook. He joins us this morning from Croatia, where he's currently on an archaeological expedition. Good morning.
Hi.
Okay, like I said, I'm calling dibs on you during a zombie apocalypse. All right, you were in Croatia,
Okay.
Which is about 4:15 p.m. right now. Share with us
That's
what
right.
you're hoping to discover. It's not necessarily about the things, but you want to hear or discover the story. What happened there?
Well, in Croatia, one of the things we say in archaeology is that it's not what you find, it's what you find out. And so you're exactly right. We're not after the things. And here we're exploring a potential old Bronze Age shipwreck that we've heard about from fishermen. And so we're currently here searching, under the sea and see what we find.
Yeah, that's got to be so exciting because to hear about something and then you go on that search, what does that feel like? The adrenaline rush must be big when you turn a corner or turn around and go, wait, there's a piece here. This could be it.
Sometimes that doesn't happen, but when it does happen, it's really exciting. And the other exciting part of this, and something that I really hope everybody understands, is that the people that give us all this information are such a part of what we do. We couldn't do what we do as archaeologists without all of the people that help us by telling us what they know. The folks that live in an area, of course, they know it better than anybody.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that sometimes it can be something that happened fairly recently, but other times it could be part of folklore, and then you decide to figure out, is it really just folklore or is it factual?
That's right.
All right, let's find out where this kind of all started for you. As a kid, Chris, you explored the surroundings of your grandparents' house in Kentucky, and you went to abandoned coal mines. And going back to what you just said, not necessarily the things that you find, but what happened there?
Well, for me, it was there was this sense that that exploring was exciting, and for me, one of my big role models was Jacques Cousteau. Now, some of the young people listening may not even know who that is anymore. It's the person that invented scuba diving and had documentaries about the oceans and rivers in the 1970s and 80s. And that was the kind of stuff that I wanted to do. And for me as a kid, that was my way to do it. Go up in the hills behind my grandparents' house and yeah, find these connections with the past, these stories that you've heard, but now you have this tangible connection, this thing right there in front of you that represents those stories.
Yeah, okay, you and I just had a connection because Jacques Cousteau, I'm one of those people who, you mentioned how younger people might not know who that is, but younger people in our audience, do you know who Jacques Cousteau is? Oh, they know. Okay, we have some audience members. They know.
Oh, okay,
yes, but,
okay.
Yeah, but that was a nostalgic moment for me because I remember Sunday afternoons and we'd be watching these amazing things, going places where none of us thought we would ever go. So you stuck with it. Your education, archaeologist, professor, Fulbright Fellow, National Science Foundation Graduate Fellow, and several other titles to your name. Adventures, excavating underwater sites off Spain. You dive for shipwrecks, search for lost civilizations. You were in the jungles of Honduras, the Mosquito Coast, the forbidden rainforest. I got to tell you, the closest I ever got to that, I went to La Gran Sabana several years ago, and I realized how vast that place was, and if we made one wrong turn, how you would never heard from me again.
And again, initially, well, the entire time I ever worked there, we're working with them for months at a time, a couple of times a year at a time, and that really is that's really the key. You're always part of a team.
Yeah, and you always understand to be prepared for the unexpected. That's really what your whole profession is about, being prepared for the unexpected as well.
It seems like it. Yeah, everything that can go wrong goes wrong, and you have to deal with that, and you have to have some way to recover something from what you're doing when this is no longer going to work, or this piece of equipment is gone, and you just have to make it work.
Yeah, because we rely on modern tech today, and we're so like used to having it and take it for granted. When you're out in those excavations, sometimes you have to navigate without modern tech, finding reliable water sources.
Right.
That's even a crazy thing. And repairing equipment in the field, preparing for unexpected challenges. You have to become like a MacGyver of sorts. What was the moment that really got your attention and said, change your approach to preparedness and how important it is that we all do it?
Well, one thing that happened is about 25 years ago now, I guess. I was part of a documentary for the BBC in England with Ewan McGregor, the actor. And in addition to him was a survival expert named Ray Mears, both of them are just wonderful. And in the course of doing that, I realized that what we did every day was this stuff. And so it occurred to me then that um, it isn't this sort of exotic thing. These survival skills, really, for many people, are daily skills. And that, I think, was sort of my initial approach into all of this.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, the survival skills are what kept humans alive. Some of the things that you had to do over time are the same things that over time humans did, right? One is making tools.
Yeah,
you had to make a spatula. You were out in the woods and you're cooking, and you had to make a spatula. You figured out how to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's not very hard. You just flatten out a piece of wood. But there's things like that were always coming up. We didn't have something we needed, or we needed to make what we were doing easier. We often built, for instance, rafts out of balsa wood trees, and this is a very light wood. Some of us know what it feels like, and it floats really well. And you can use the same bark from that tree as rope to tie it all together. It's almost like nature's raft kit.
Yeah.
Growing right there on the riverbank. And that kind of thing was an everyday occurrence. Or even something as simple as making a fire when you're camping out in the rainforest and everything is wet. Those are skills that you learn, and after a while it's hard to imagine why that was difficult in the first place.
Yeah, what's funny is there are people who say, I would have never thought of that. If you're desperate enough, you will think of some things, right? And so the emergency playbook is meant to make it a little easier for us. We all know here in the Houston area, we live in a place that's prone to hurricanes. We will lose power. We've got heat. We have all those types of things that we're dealing with. But yet it's surprising how many people don't prepare. And you say that the thing is, when you prepare for all of this, it takes off the stress. So just go ahead and get it done and have it ready to go. It doesn't have to be overwhelming or expensive for that matter.
That's right. And in fact, that was part of the motivation for writing this. My co-author, Amy Edelman, contacted me after reading a previous book, which also had many of these same themes. And she was concerned that many of her friends who were educated and otherwise really engaged just weren't dealing with this stuff because it was sort of seemed overwhelming or maybe hopeless, or it was often couched in these sort of doomsday prepper scenarios that turned a lot of people off. I mean, the idea of creating your bunker and defending it with all the weaponry and having MREs or canned food stashes that you are protecting from the hordes out there that are trying to get it. That's just not really. First of all, that's not whatever happens, and secondly, that's many elements of that scenario are just not appealing to people.
Yeah.
And so this was an attempt to bring another approach to it.
Yeah, and again, the whole point of just planning, like know your biggest risk in your area, right? A communication plan, because we can't depend on, we found that out too, you can't depend on that cell service now that we don't have landline phones, most of us anymore. And then practical emergency kit. And the thing is, a lot of us will say, oh yeah, I've got that emergency kit, I've got batteries, I got my medicine, but if you look at it, I know that happened during COVID, a lot of people were staying at home going crazy, cleaning out their pantries, and you're like, okay, expiration date 2004, okay, you might need to get rid of that right there. there, right? So just make a point of going
That's
through
right.
and freshening up those things. But you say another thing, leaning into modern times, is be aware of the apps that are out there that can help you as well.
Yeah, sure. There's, sort of to kind of go through that list, if I were thinking of the first thing to think about would be knowledge. Know what you're potentially facing. I mean, just listening to your broadcast before I was on here, tornadoes and the floods coming. So there are many that uh, could affect, people in your area. Know what the risks are. Um, and have some sense of what you need to do. That would be the knowledge. Have some skills that you're able to utilize when this happens, and that could be things like making fire in the rain, but it also could be things like having a communication plan for your family. I mean, imagine. I don't know if it were something like a hurricane, or I don't know if you remember a few years ago there was, I believe it was a bomb in Nashville that really wiped out
Mm-hmm.
cell service all over, at least the southeast. I don't know if it made it out as far out as Texas, but um, you know, you realize how much you depend on that
Yeah.
because
And that can happen
we
at
don't
any
have
time,
landlines.
not just with a storm coming. It can happen for whatever reason. Okay, I want to end
That's
with this
right.
one thing. You need to solve this mystery for me because you're used to solving mysteries. Why is it that when we know a
Okay.
storm is coming or zombie apocalypse, that people get all the toilet paper that they can never use? There's no amount of wiping that's going to happen with that much toilet paper that people have gotten. What is it with toilet paper?
I suspect it has to do with what happens when you don't have any.
Okay,
And
and there you go.
you know,
And there you go. Chris,
if
thank you so much. You answered that so quickly and eloquently. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for this book that I know a lot of people in
well,
this area in particular can use.
well, thank you very much.
All right, you can purchase your copy of the Emergency Playbook, a bunker-free guide to disaster preparation, wherever books are sold. And these audience members over here, you'll meet them later. They were laughing. You're laughing because you were the one in the store just like stocking up, weren't you? All right.